Senators, Democrats and Republicans, just wrapped up a briefing with the Director of National Intelligence, the Director of the FBI, and the Director of the National Security Agency, among others. The focus, protecting American elections from bad faith actors abroad. Republican Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota was in the briefing. He sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Tell us what you learned.
Well, we've had this same message now for the last 2 days in multiple briefings. What we're finding out is that we have multiple actors from outside of the United States that have been trying to influence our election, the same as they have in the past. They use propaganda to influence the American public, trying to get them to sway the election one way or another, but in most cases more to cause problems with the election, to make less trust in the elections. That's their primary purpose here, is just to make us question whether or not democracy works. The American people can't fall for this. Our elections are safe, they are working, we do have safeguards in place, but they'd love to have the American public lose confidence in democracy.
In the last 24 hours, we've heard former President Trump repeatedly warn about the threat that Iran poses in this election. Take a listen.
I want to make that statement because we are under threat. I have been threatened very directly, and I appreciate the agencies that we've been meeting with, but we've been threatened very directly by Iran. And I think you have to let them know, because the best way to do it is through the office of the president, that you do any attacks on former presidents or candidates for president, your country gets blown to smithereens, as we say.
That, of course, is not just a threat to the election. That's also about a physical threat to President Trump himself. His campaign has been briefed by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. What do you know about what he's talking about, President Trump, there?
Most of it is public knowledge now. I feel comfortable talking about it. Iran has very clearly targeted American officials, primarily in past administrations, but nonetheless, they have also threatened the former president of the United States. He is absolutely correct in that the way that you take care of this, you send a very clear message to the Ayatollah and to his people that this simply will not be tolerated, and that if they ever want to have hell to pay, they should continue down this course of action. That message has got to be sent very, very clearly and directly.
Let's turn to the new Senate report out today that identified sweeping failures by the U.S. Secret Service ahead of that first attempt to assassinate former President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. These failures include not properly planning, poor communication at the actual rally, and not executing crucial decision-making in the moment. If you can narrow it down, what is your primary concern from this report?
It would appear that they did not have a chain of command with someone who was in charge, someone on the site that had been briefed beforehand, that had done his due diligence, that was being communicated to by local law enforcement officers and by their own staff. It seems to me that they had a breakdown in communication and a real breakdown in the chain of command. We know that they probably needed some additional individuals there. We know that the drones that normally they would use, they wanted more. It was pretty clear that they'd asked for that, and that response was denied, and that they had someone on it who apparently did not have a lot of knowledge or understanding about how to use a drone, even though it was part of the plan to keep the former president safe. So they've got a number of issues here that have got to be addressed. And if this is the way they're running the safety and the operations for other candidates, we've got real serious problems in protecting all of our candidates. Then they've got to get to the bottom of this thing here, but they got to talk about that chain of command that clearly failed in this particular case.
We also learned today that a Secret Service agent is now on administrative leave as the agency investigates these alleged sexual misconduct allegations that he conducted against a staffer for the Kamala Harris campaign. There's an investigation underway. Have you been briefed at all about that? What have you learned?
I have not been briefed on it. I'm aware of the news article, and I can just tell you that there has to be a zero tolerance for this type of behavior. The Secret Service has got to be beyond reproach. We need team members who can trust one another and who are capable of doing the job at all times. And even when they are off duty, they still have to have a higher standard that they need to hold themselves to. I'm sure that there are other members of the Secret Service that are ashamed of what this individual did. What I want to know is why did he get away with it this time? How did he get in that position in the first place? And why wasn't he singled out and eliminated a long time ago?
If you were president right now, what would you do to improve the U.S. Secret Service?
You have to go to the top and you have to say, look, you have to tell us what your plan is now in order to bring this back up to speed. What are you going to do to, with the resources necessary to see that this does not happen? And I want to know with every single candidate, tell me who it is that you've got to be protecting, tell me what your plans are, share with us the due diligence that you're doing, and then I would have somebody else following up with them so that it's not just that person, but other people can take a look at it and find out whether or not there are better plans and whether or not the thought concepts behind their approach is actually working. You have to, look, they've got some really good people in the Secret Service. The former president has applauded their work in the past. The current president has, other officials have. This isn't everybody. But if you got a few bad apples, you have to weed them out. And then you have to provide them with an appropriate chain of command and the ability to have the due diligence to make sure that the plans that they are looking at have been second-guessed and that they have reaffirmed that they're doing the right thing in each particular case.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. There are so many excellent people at the U.S. Secret Service who are willing to literally lay down their lives for the individuals that they're entrusted with protecting, but a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Republican Senator Mike Rounds, thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir.